I remember standing with you in a little village in Thailand, and we looked at the people around us that were living very basic existences there. And you were there working with things with jatropha trees and sort of mapping carbon offsets and those sorts of things. And you said it was important to be there because these people, as basically as they're living, are really on the front lines and the first people that would feel any change in climate.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's the rural folks that are not able to save, don't have extra capital available, are living from year to year, we'll see the first impacts of climate change, whether it's through changes in rainfall or temperature or what have you, and also the first impacts of rising fuel prices, because they actually will pay the same price for gasoline, if not more, than we do here in this country. And so those two effects, climate change and reliance on fossil fuels, are threats, potential threats to the poorest of the poor. I mean, places where we visited, those folks were making less than $1,000 a year. Okay, most parts of the poorest parts of Africa are living on less than $400 a year. These folks in extreme poverty that are living off the land have the most to lose from climate change and changing rising fuel prices. The jatropha example that you mentioned is where we're trying to find ways that local farmers in rural areas in Thailand and Laos, where you visited, can produce their own fuel. And they do that by growing it in a tree, a jatropha tree, and squeezing the oil out of the nuts, and then a simple process of turning the vegetable oil into biodiesel, a B100 biodiesel. And they can produce enough to run their own vehicles. And it can be locally produced. It doesn't have to be a large centralized processing system. They have the land, and they have excess labor. So this kind of model is land is capital. Oil's not capital. Land is, because you can produce everything from biological materials that you would produce today from fossil fuels.
Well, it was interesting when we were there because the approach isn't just, you going into a little village and saying, grow this tree. Right. It's working with universities, it's working with the government. They have sort of their own extension network. I mean, the way I started thinking about it, like we're used to here. But it seems like it has to take an effort like that. It's grassroots, but it's not just grassroots.
Right. No, it's at many different levels of institutions and organizations in the country. And for instance, in Thailand, we have a very close working relationship with the National Research Council of Thailand, with several universities in Thailand, and then with some research stations out in the countryside from those universities, and then community organizations, farmer organizations, and then individual landowners even that are actually the ones planting the trees. And you have to do all that because at one level, the highest level, the government of Thailand has an international agreement on climate change, just like most countries in the world do. And it is part of their national policy on climate change mitigation through growing trees for carbon offsets. So they're interested. And then the universities are where the expertise lies. Their land-grant university, just like our land-grant university, they don't call it that, has the scientists and the expertise. And then you have to work with the farmers themselves because they're the ones that own those offsets. They're the ones that are on the front lines of capturing CO2 out of the atmosphere. They're the ones that are doing the service, and they're the ones that should get paid for it. And to ensure that that whole thing, all that works together, you got to involve a lot of people, a lot of organizations. Interestingly, one of our strongest collaborators at a university in Thailand is from Mahasarakham University, and they affectionately refer to them as MSU Thailand, because that's their initials as well.
And we saw that when we were there. I actually have a shirt that I've been wearing around, and people say those aren't the MSU colors. I said, well, no, it's a whole
Right,
different
that's
MSU.
right.
But they're also having some of the same things that we've seen here in this country, where everybody, the younger people are leaving the countryside. The farms aren't as productive because they're having to go to Bangkok and other cities where they can make a living. And
Right.
and part of your work is showing that you still can make a living from these areas. It's not just subsistence farming.
Right. Right, that's been a long-term trend, depopulating the rural areas and young people moving to the cities. But at least in a couple of examples where we're working, the one most notable one is this InPang network, which is a community network of about 4,000 households. Their focus is to make agriculture diverse and productive and important to their children. And many of their children are staying on. So instead of getting into mountains of debt with subsidies to grow annual rice production, they're growing trees that produce berries, biofuels, wine, juice, mushrooms, just fabrics, dyes for fabrics, a whole range of high value-added products that bring substantial income and some economic freedom for the families. And I think that keeps generations, productive on the farm.
In looking at the issues related to climate change and the bioeconomy, is this something that you think politicians, people in our country, are missing out on when they start looking at all the economic problems?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the focus seems to be on jobs, but not really the economy, or something narrow like that, in a very traditional kind of mindset, when in fact we're sitting on a change in the way our economy runs that's going to be really profound and has profound opportunities. What I worry about is that while we're bickering here, the Chinese or the Indians or the Europeans have figured it out. And they're going to be producing all the renewable technologies or all the biotechnologies, and not us. And that would be a shame.
So all this isn't just related to the weather?
No, it's not the weather. It's the climate.
Well, and how do you tell people the difference between climate and weather?
Weather is what happens on a day-to-day basis. And the climate is the system that you live in for the long term. So you can have a tropical climate, and you can have an arid desert environment or a polar environment. Those are all climate designations. But whether it rains today or snows today is weather. And
so we have climate and we have economic climate.
Yep, and what we need is a climate for change on climate change.
That could be a bumper sticker, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
Cool.
That's what's needed, I guess. Bumper stickers help, it seems to be. Yeah,
bumper sticker.
Definitely.
Well, Professor David Skole, we are just about out of time. I appreciate you being here today. And for more information, you can always go to our website, which is at msutoday.msu.edu. Thank you for watching MSU Today in Studio. I'm Jim Peck, and I'll see you right here next time. Take care.
The preceding program was produced by Michigan State University in association with the